All right, so this time around, going into the Quadra value stuff, it's an idea I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I just kind of keep throwing it on the back burner and getting caught up in other ideas and thoughts, whatever. So, point of this one is to emphasize the importance of Quadra values, something that I see gets lost a lot. It just people just omit it in favor of other things, and for the love of God, I can't understand why. Two, to bring up the fact that Quadra values is probably Socionics' greatest contribution, arguably, to any sort of Jungian typology system. It's funny to me how you can look around and see how the concept of Quadra values is constantly being imported into MBTI, cognitive functions, Jungian. For every other system seems to somehow refer to Quadra values, like snatched from Socionics, or they've thought about it for a long time and basically stumbled across the same idea as Quadra values. So anyway, it's critically important. It's also important because of the fact that when you're talking Quadra values, the word values comes into play, right? It's about what is important to the person. What do you value? What do you care about? This is where we get into what's important in psychology or any kind of an interview. It's not about typology anymore. It's just asking the person, who are you? What do you value? What do you care about? What's important to you? And the person will bring it up. These are the things that are important to me. This is what I give a shit about, etc. Right? It's the point. Quadra values. What do you value? The other piece that's important to talk about is the practical side of things. There's a lot of instances where you're probably doing more of a formal typing session or some kind of a more formal conversation with somebody. And what you're looking for is the elements that the person values, which is Quadra values, right? So in other words, the person is talking and they're describing the reason why they do something, the motivation for why they chose to go in this profession, why they chose this hobby, what it is about relationship or whatever. To the why, what is motivating you to do that? What is it about doing that thing that interests you? What are you trying to accomplish? When you get into that conversation, the person's going to start to blurt out certain elements, whether that's NE, I, TE, whatever. And you're starting to see these elements pop up over and over again as the driving motivation, the reason they care, etc. Now you're really getting to understand on a deeper level. Who are you? What motivates you? What do you want to achieve in the world? What are you trying to achieve for yourself, etc. And you see the values come up. Now you can identify the Quadra. Once you've got the Quadra, we've narrowed it down to 4 possible types that you could be, right? Obviously. Here's where things get a little bit interesting, and I think there's different points of view on this. I find another practical reason for Quadra values being important is because it often seems that you can type someone yourself. And let me see, I got Roshiro. Hi, I'll get to your question in a second. You're typing somebody and you figured out the Quadra value, or you think you know your own Quadra value, but you're a little bit confused about, well, what about, maybe I'm not this type, but I'm this other type, and it's part of the same Quadra. Maybe I'm this or I'm that, but I'm confused between this and this within the same Quadra. I find that this happens a lot in reality. I see several people all the time kind of flip-flopping a little bit on their type, but usually within the same Quadra. Makes sense to me because at the end of the day, you share the same values. So in other words, if you think you're ILI, but you're like, well, but sometimes, man, I think I might be ESI, or I feel like I'm a little LIE, or it's like, okay, whatever, but you're within the same Quadra. It makes sense that you are not a static thing. You're a living, breathing organism. You change and shift throughout the day, throughout the week, depending on what's going on. And in your mind, you're aware of the fact that certain elements within that quadra are standing out to you more or less and shifting all the time. And so you kind of get a little confused as to which type I really am, but within the quadra. This just goes back to why the quadra values are so important. These are the things that you value. These are the elements that are important to you. And because they're important to you, you're going to get along with others who are of the same quadra. It's kind of the whole idea. You just see me circling around quadra and quadra and quadra again. Someone's behavior externally. So you're looking at somebody and, you thought they were ILI, but they behave in a way that looks a little ESI to you all of a sudden. And then you're like, maybe I got them wrong. Maybe they're actually this or that or whatever. Understand, they value the same things. These types are all part of the same quadra, so they temporarily behave in a way that looks a little bit like another member of the same quadra. Like Now, let's be real. In life, we often are not around somebody all day long, seeing them in multiple situations and circumstances. You're getting little snapshots of them. So the moment somebody behaves in a way a little bit unusual, that's going to confuse you, and you're going to start to think, maybe I typed them wrong the first time and they're actually this. No, they're just shifting around within their own quadrant. They're going to move. There's movement there. It's dynamic. I wish I had like a cute little, you know what? I'm going to get all like abstract. You ever seen like a lava lamp and you see little wax just kind of coming and going and moving and shifting? Imagine within that lava lamp, it's really just elements of the same quadra, and it's just coming around and moving here and there. It's shifting constantly, but still the same valued elements just kind of moving around within you. Again, you're a living, breathing thing. Things are dynamically in flux all the time. So let me stop ignoring questions here. Let's see. So, what would you say is the impact on cultural values when it comes to quadras? It's always going to be a factor. So that's obvious to me, right? You're always going to have whatever someone's background and culture is always going to play out. But the individual, what does the individual value, is still their own thing, right? That's the part I'm looking for, essentially. What do you as an individual value? Now, your behavior, your attitude, your mannerisms, maybe even a little bit of how your emotional temperament comes across, that might be a product of your culture, your environment, a lot more likely anyway. So these are some things I noticed. So if we're looking at, let's say, we often can look at some of these European cultures. We'll look at some Brits and so forth. It's very Delta over there. It's very polite, in many cases, kind of sleepy and slow. Okay. Compare that to classic sort of like Latin Hispanic cultures where everything is loud and outgoing and all over the place and everybody's very assertive and so on. That's just the culture. Everybody who comes from that environment is going to behave that way. But that doesn't mean that that's what you're thinking, that this is what motivates me. This is what drives me. This is what I care about, really. So there's still a distinction there between the culture you come from and what you actually value. The trick is really asking the right kinds of questions to figure out the difference, right? There's a skill factor that comes into play there. Hopefully that answers that enough. Differences with, just show that. Differences between alpha and delta. Naivete is one that really stands out, but differences. Obviously, they're going to value NE and SI a lot, and you're going to see that kind of stands out. But alpha quadra having more of an FE and not valuing TE, this is generally speaking going to be a lot more enthusiastic, outgoing, almost childish, interested in ideas for the sake of ideas, right? Different concepts that they want to talk about and so on. And it's ideas. So you see this a lot more with when it comes to, like, if we're talking NTs, for example, it could be theoretical science, theoretical physics. It could be something new and fun. Hey, look at this new conspiracy theory that's kind of fun, and we're going to get into this kind of crap. Why? Because it's just fun to do it. To me, I like the Elon Musk concept. I like Elon Musk more as an ILE, ENTP, because to me, he often gets into a lot of silly ass fucking ideas that don't seem very practical. Deltas are very pragmatic. Deltas are far more pragmatic and a lot less enthusiastic and exciting. They can almost be boring and dry depending on your type of view, but that really separates them a lot. Yeah, pretty much. That's, to me, a lot of times that stands out the most. A lot of theoretical thinking and enjoying ideas just for the sake of it. A lot of FE, especially positive FE. I want to create fun environments for a lot of people, even random people, even strangers, stuff like that. Deltas, much more pragmatic and much more about specific people or a specific cause that they think is practical. What's this? Alpha and delta shared values, NESI, so in a way are more similar to beta and gamma. Yeah. And again, you see it a lot. Wait, hold on a second. NESI and SEN, yes. And you can notice the difference. To me, the betas and the gammas that are SENI oriented, they, because of it, can be a lot more serious, more aggressive, and more interested in some cause or goal or something they're trying to do. Something significantly meaningful that's probably not necessarily pragmatic, but it's just trying to change the world or do something important. They're looking at it as what's deeply important in life, and I want to go after that. Alphas, nah. Deltas, not really either. They don't care about that. Elon is ENTP. Again, people still argue it. I think ENTP works well for him. It's just so many ideas that he does that are just goofy and meaningless. He started out with this whole concept of I want to go to Mars, but okay, when was the last time we heard you doing shit about Mars? You're constantly doing something else all the time. We hear more about you trying to get into stupid ass fights with was it Zuckerberg? You know, a stunt. Come on, gives a shit. A couple of nerdy old farts trying to like wrestle with each other. Like, please. When it comes to the difficulty when it comes to those two quadras, alphas and deltas. Well, again, there's a lot of the overlap. You're dealing with the NESI. So it's understandable. I was paying attention to TE and FI. Culture impacting on quadras, but do you think gender has as much effect too? Yes, I do. To me, gender matters. Gender always matters. It is important. I just think it's stupid to discount gender. So examples. First, let's just go with basic logic, right? Women, generally speaking, have more estrogen. Males, generally speaking, have more testosterone. Males are generally more aggressive. Females, generally more agreeable. It's just common sense, right? Therefore, if that's, oh, there we go. Therefore, we're going to see accentuations of SE in males particularly when they're talking about SE, like the aggressive side of SE, the imposing oneself on others. That's more likely going to be a male thing. There's various types. So let's say we're talking about an ESE, okay, SFJ, like alpha, like that. Oh, what's it? Oh, whatever, bro. Y'all don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so where was I? ESFJ, right? ESE. You're gonna run into some males who are ESE, and you're typing them, you're talking to them, whatever, and they're not as expressive, they're not as emotional, they're not as flamboyant, and all this feeling. They don't express it quite as much. It's a little bit more subdued. Now, if you're sticking to pure theory, you're gonna say, well, that doesn't make sense. Dominant. It does make sense because they're male, possibly living in a masculine culture that does not like you to be so expressive like that, right? It's going to become a problem if you're too flamboyantly out there with your feelings. It's just obvious, right? Shit, in some places they might kill you if you're too flamboyant. Same goes if you're SEE. I like the idea that for SEEs, there's many cases you're going to run into them and they're going to be much more, again, toned down on the FE, but a little bit higher on TE, right? And all of a sudden, the theory kind of gets a little weird. You start going, well, but the FE is supposed to be higher. Yeah, but again, it's the culture they come in, and it matters. It's something you have to keep in mind if you're typing somebody or whatever, right? So it matters. What's this? Difference between beta and gammas. Difference between betas and gammas. They want to kill each other. The biggest differences that I would notice, TE and FE. Desire for independence. So gammas in general tend to be much more independent minded. They're considered the most independent of all the quadras, right? They're kind of doing their own thing, sometimes to a fault. I think it's actually a weakness for gammas at times that they really just go their own way, and they often do it even when they don't really intend to. It's just like an instinct. They just often just do their own thing. And it's not great. I see a lot of gamma types. We'll talk about like not wanting to go out to the group, company, party, gathering. We played a football game and now we're going to go to the bar afterward and socialize. And a lot of gammas are like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not going to the game. I don't care. I'm going home. And I'm just skipping out on the FE group dynamics and the energy and all that. They're like, yeah, it's no point in that. I don't want to do it. This is socially isolating. This is not good. Betas are usually more likely to care about wanting to socialize. Even if they're just going to be like a fly on the wall and just kind of hang out. Like maybe an IEI might just hang out. But they're going to want to do that. FE is important. Their image, their public image is another big piece. So FEs, for FE people, they care about their image. How am I coming across to people? How are people thinking about me? What are people going to say about me out in the world and so on? They value it. They care about it. They're paying attention to that. Their branding, their marketing of themselves, that's important. Gammas don't give a shit. Gammas struggle a lot. And to be honest, I'm going to be real with you. You can kind of see it even in YouTube stuff, even right here. You want to see beta and gamma differences? Rust, check out Rust's channel. Who's on here? Rust, what's up, bro? Love you. Love your channel. But go check out Rust's channel. And you will see branding. You will see marketing. You will see somebody who actually gives a shit about their brand, their image. What am I selling? What does my product look like? What does my channel look like? What's it doing? Right? You look at my channel, or you look at a few other people, and our channels look like shit. We don't care. It looks fucking stupid. We don't bother with banners. We don't bother with nothing. It's just like we can't be bothered with that feed. We just don't give a fuck. Right? It's It's just something you notice right there. Let me see. There's a whole lot of chatter going on. I got to catch up. Dude speaking facts will trigger the feminist. Well, yeah, listen, that's just what it's going to be. If you show your face in public, you take a risk. It's just how it is. What's this? I don't think I understand gammas much. Betas can be focused on being individualistic and going against the mainstream. How is it for gammas? For ideology, I would say that for gammas, they're not really ideological. You don't see it expressed much. That doesn't mean that they can't have a certain ideology that they believe in, but it's not something that is going to be noticeable in the type. So let me back up for a second here to make this more clear. So if you're thinking of the quadras again, right? Value. So if we're dealing with a gamma, you're valuing TE, you're valuing FI, you're valuing SE, and you value NI. Those are the things you value, you care about, and you're thinking about them in some way. You're consciously thinking about them. The other elements you don't really value. It doesn't mean you can't think about it or process it from time to time. I'm not a big believer in the idea that there are certain elements that, depending on where it is in your function, you just can't process it. You're so blind and stupid that you can't possibly think about it. I'm not really a big fan of that. So the way I think about it is there are certain people that will clearly demonstrate to you what their values are, what they care about. They'll talk about it. They'll act according to it. And the other stuff, it just doesn't seem to be very present in the personality. You don't see them really engaging with it much. It's not that important to them. They just kick it to the side. So back to the ideology question, a gamma might have some ideology, something that maybe they care about it, they think about it, but it's always like in the background, in the back burner. It's never going to dominate. They're often going to decide, you know what, I'm going to go with what's practical and useful. And if I have to compromise my ideology now, fine, because that's just what's practical now. Feels a little bit like politicians that will tell you, hey, sometimes you got to compromise in order to get anything done. If you're too ideological and too rigid, nothing happens. You don't ever bend. The other side doesn't ever bend. Nobody can get anything done. And we're all just sitting here ideologically pure, but nothing ever gets done. What's the point in that? It's meaningless, right? I think gammas generally think along those lines of compromising, right? Just naturally. It's the pragmatism. What's going on over here? 4D, FE, male, inner city with throughout my family. I'm not super FE person. Focus is on FE, but I control my expressions. Right. And so this person's saying 4D FE. So four-dimensional FE. They're really good at FE, essentially. But being 4D FE means you understand the FE side very well. You know how to control and manipulate it for whatever goal you want. So if you want come across a certain way, you can. If you want to downplay a certain thing, you can. You can do what you want with FE depending on the environment you find yourself. What is going to be most useful? Or just what do you want? Obviously, city gangs, if you're in prison, does it help you to be flamboyantly emotional and talking about how your feelings are hurt or that you want to cry in your jail cell? No. What's going on over here? I question most dudes who relate to EIE, crying helpless, Homelander, or clicky girl meme. I question most dudes who relate to EIE, crying helpless, Homelander. You guys are going to make me watch this show. I have not watched The Boys, but I'm going to end up watching this shit just so I can better understand this talk. You guys are always typing these characters. But from what I have seen of Homelander, mostly from Russ's channel, uh, yeah, he makes me cringe. It's cringy as shit to me to look at him. He just so much emotionality that it's kind of yeah. How does that work with SE being much more socially oriented with 4DE? I think I need to understand better what the question is here. I'm assuming that they're not showing as much emotion, which I kind of already went over. Again, if you're very good with the FE, you can manipulate it however you want it to go. If you want to show emotion, you can. If you don't want to, you want to downplay it because it's not a good idea right now, you can. It's just SB2 Brad probably was do. Holy crap. I think SCs can be excellent marketing. When I was in sales, it was always SE, SLE. Yeah. The top was occasional LIE, SO3 sneaks in. Yeah, and these are all types that you would expect would be good at sales, particularly with the FE stuff. Lots of FE usage. Lots of FE usage, lots of drive and energy with SE to get moving. So yeah, you would expect all these types to do that well. I think some types that are like poor on FE or just not poor and unvaluing, they don't give a shit enough about the branding and how they're coming across, that can be a real problem for sales. They're that type of person that might be saying, you know what, I'm gonna do me. You can like it or not like it, and that's going to be very hit or miss. Some clients are going to like you and some clients are not, but that's not going to do well if you're trying to really be top of the line in terms of salesmanship. It's not great. I still don't get this whole SO3 LIE stuff. Again, Enneagram to me, I've always found rather confusing, and I'm sort of on board with the idea that Enneagram does not seem to capture LIEs well, and a few other types, but LIEs in particular. I've seen a few LIEs talk about this. I also am one that when I look at Enneagram stuff, I'm like, I don't see myself in any of these types. I'm having a hard time. Let me see. I like to say that everyone has access to every IE. However, they may not focus on it. A super religious TE value does describe typology. It's not overt. Yeah, I kind of agree with all this. Yeah. Everybody has access to all the IEs, the information elements. But the ones that we value are the ones that are on our mind. We're paying attention to it. We actually give a shit, and we're trying to use it. Okay. It's also important to note with Socionics, you can value something and it's on your mind. You're thinking about it. Your dominant functions, your dominant elements, and your higher ones are things you're thinking about more often. You're more motivated by those elements. But there's a nuance here that just because you are base SE or NE or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're super, super talented at it. That's another area that people kind of like have a hard time with. And I understand why. Everybody has a hard time with this. Even I have a hard time with this. So what am I saying with all this shit? So let's say you're TE dominant, you're TE base. Okay. That's just what you're motivated by. That's what you're thinking about. That's what you're trying to do a lot. Does that mean that you're like this brilliant computer that never gets anything wrong, factual piece of information in their head and super practical at all times? No. There's different levels. There's different TE DOMs out there that are more TEing than the other guy. That's another TE DOM. Same as SE. Are all SE types assertive and want to punch you in the face and so on? No, some are more chill and doing their own thing, and others are aggressive as fuck and they're going around punching people in the face. There's levels to it. What are gammas trying to get done? Whatever the flying fuck a gamma wants to do. They're very independent minded, so of course they're going to, it just comes down to them. Whatever they fucking feel like doing. Let's see. Yeah, kind of agree with that. Strengths is where things get tricky. Again, we go back to Quadra values. These are the things that you value. These are the elements you're looking at. These are the kinds of things you're paying attention to because you care. You're actively trying to attend to these particular elements. How strong, how good. Now we're talking about relativity between you and someone else. So there's this LIE who has this much TE, and then there's this other LIE. Whose TE is stronger? You know, the TE deathmatch. Now it's a relativity thing, but they're both still LIEs, right? Same with everything else. So they can map more than a single MBTI type. The dreaded DCNH. Yeah, I'm still not sold on DCNH. I don't see it. And part of the reason I think is that DCNH, while it has some potential in the ideas it's trying to play with, part of the problem might also be that the people using it suck. So it's the age-old kind of conversation where you have, you know what? I'm just gonna use an example that I saw the other day. Like somebody kind of looking at a person who thinks they're IEI, and they're like, "Well, you could also be EIE harmonizing." Who gives a shit? They're IEI at that point. Like, what is this EIE harmonizing helping with anymore? Like, it starts to become counterproductive and meaningless crap. It's just like, why? And that just might be the users, the people trying to use Model G, DCNH stuff. They just suck at what they're doing, and it ruins the whole system for everybody else. Could be. Go to our. What is this? He said gammas are not oriented to go to a bar. Okay, let me specify. So this is an actual conversation I was having with somebody, and I think this applies to many types, right? But you'll see this with certain gammas, ILIs in particular, maybe even some ESIs and so on, where they go out, they're hanging, they're playing a game, they're playing a sport, soccer, whatever, recreationally, they're playing with some other people. Okay, we played, we had fun, and then everybody decides, let's go to the bar, hang out some more for a few more hours, shoot the shit, have some beers, and we're just gonna socialize. And you might see some gammas like, yeah, no, I'm out. I don't want to do the bar socializing thing. The practical reason that I came here for, playing the game or whatever, it's over. I don't really feel like socializing with the group at a bar. Yeah, I'm going home. They might do something like that. So that's kind of what I meant with that story. The desire to kind of participate in certain group activities that seem to feel like it's just socializing just for the fuck of it. There are many gammas who are just like, yeah, no, I'm out. Some deltas will do that too. What you're noticing in both cases is just the lack of FE, the disregard for FE stuff. They're like, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to socialize with people, and I don't care if people find that weird. Like, I don't care how I'm coming across. And I'm not super. What's going on here? I relate to EIE a lot, and I'm not super alpha male or portray myself that way, but I'm certainly not sensitive, try hard, who's constantly losing control of his emotions. That's Homelander. Yeah, again, there's going to be variations between types, right? What we're looking for is what's the motivation? What's driving you to do that? Okay, you behaved this way and you did this, but why? What is it about that that's important to you? What is it about that that you were looking for? What is it about that that you cared about? That's kind of what we're looking for to see what those values really are. Yeah, and I'm kind of terrified to watch Homelander because I feel like I'm gonna cringe so much with that fucking guy. These can seem. So I was wondering if SEs can seem more beta-ish, where they to the bar, engage others, and have fun with it. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think SEEs are actually one of the more misunderstood types in really fucking typology. SEEs don't exist in MBTI, and some of those other systems. The way they describe an ESFP sounds like an ESE in Socionics. So it's almost like ESFPs or SEs don't exist. I think a lot of gammas in particular don't make a whole lot of sense when you look at them from an MBTI point of view, whatever, those systems. SEs, yes, they can look kind of beta-ish because they can be very social if they choose to, if there's something in it for them, or they just feel like it. That's it. I just feel like socializing. So they go hang out with people and do it well. And they can be very impulsive and so on. But deep down, they're kind of like, okay, I'm socializing, but that doesn't mean I necessarily feel that connected to the people around me. Right? That's the FI valued part coming out. I would say LIEs can do that too. Do EIIs have a dark side, or is that some BS that I read? You know what? Logically, I'd almost have to say that, look, every type can have a dark side. It's like, well, what do you mean? What's the dark side? What's their dark side? Being moody and catatonic in a corner, or like they want to go around murdering people, like the show You. What dark side are we referring to, really? In some ways, I have a hard time seeing EIIs as having a dark side. I think more often than not, EIIs are probably one of the most noble, compassionate types out there. I'm still on board with them being the best natural counselors. They're almost like too nice and fairy-like to a fault. It's usually their problem. So it's a little bit like, what do you mean by dark side? Yeah, look at it. Yeah, exactly. Like, what's their dark side? The chat and him did think I was LI for the majority of the video, but he said that ultimately my values are more in beta, and he said I just had a really strong TE role. Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't have any information to go off of. If I saw the typing session, then I would have an opinion, but I don't know. With unfounded moral superiority, what is this? Unfounded moral superiority complex isn't even uncommon. I would have to disagree. I know that that's out there in the literature and people talk about this. I have no idea what they're talking about, but it could be. This could be like an intertype relation thing, personality thing, conflicting, not understanding, not liking each other. I don't know, something like that. Um, but I don't know. With EIIs that I've met, and I know a few of them, I don't get this moral superiority complex thingamajiggy. I almost feel like that's not possible with an EII. So I need to see more specifics on what someone's saying about that. EIIs are the most inoffensive and empathetic type. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, almost to a fault. If you want to criticize EIIs, part of their big weaknesses is something I've been talking about. You have disorders like executive functioning disorder, very ADHD kind of a thing or whatever. I feel like EIIs often would feel like they have executive functioning disorder. Tough time making decisions, being quick, figuring out this is what needs to be done. I know what to do, I know what I have to do. They're often pretty terrible at that. And it makes sense because they're SE polar and their TE is very weak. So the idea of imposter syndrome, not knowing what they're doing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, these are areas that suck. I completely agree with Rust in the sense that no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Rust. It was DJ who said it. Another, I can see ESTPs, for example, getting annoyed with EIIs because EIIs just are not quick to take action. They hesitate way too much. They're hard to push to do anything. They can be types that are like, meh, I figured something out, or I think a certain way, and that's it. I don't need to act on it or do anything about it or enforce anything. It's just, yeah. And I can see high SE types getting very pissed at that. What's going on over here? Probably SP3, self-preservation 3. I mean, so far that seems to be the, is it self-preservation? I think it's self-preservation. Yeah, it seems to be the leading thing. I remember seeing your video with what the hell is his name? Harvey Spencer, whatever the fuck it is from that show. I was like, I like doing, for example, I find is, or it makes sense for a somebody who's elite. They're at that level. It makes a lot of sense, and I almost see like it almost seems obvious to me, some of that SP3 stuff. But for myself, I'm not convinced. I don't know. And sus seemed like it actually from what I was reading. Yeah, I don't know if I connect with that. I think the biggest problem with threes for Enneagram stuff, especially with gammas, there's too much talk of threes wanting to put on an image, a show, to impress others, to do it for others in some way, and that doesn't correlate well with what gammas are about. Gammas are usually doing it for themselves, for their own reasons, with little interest in the FE. They don't give a shit about doing it for other people. It's not that important enough. So that's my biggest issue with the whole concept of Enneagram 3 and gammas. What is going on here? When someone says they are FE Dom in MBTI and TI Dom in Socionics, et cetera, I could care. When someone says they're FE Dom in MBTI, I could care less. I'm going to assume that's because it doesn't fucking make sense. What's going on here? Counter-type vanity, focus on pragmatism, hard work, and efficiency seems most fitting, probably. See, at least for some very stereotypical LIEs, yeah, I could see that working for a lot of them. I don't see it for myself. I wouldn't really even the hyper focus on pragmatism, the hyper focus on hard work and efficiency and all that, just it's a bit over the top. It's a bit much. Mapping FE down, that's an exaggeration. Don't let PDB here. Personality database that SE bases are long, just uncaged animals. You're gonna have to clarify that. Not just uncaged animals. Oh well, okay, I see what you're talking about there. Yeah, it just listen, you're on the internet. People think all kinds of stupid shit. Like one of the unfortunate things too, especially out of like MBTI or Kiersian culture and all that other shit, is the type bias. It's unfortunate and it plagues all of us and it sort of insidiously infected all of us. We tend to think of some types as just being dumb. Just like we tend to think that if someone's an NT, well, oh, they must be smart. We got to listen to them. No, there's plenty of NTs that are stupid as fuck. They come up with some dumb shit. And you might find some SFs that are quite brilliant and well educated and everything else. Also, now that I said that, we mentioned before gender matters, culture, of course, matters, education matters. What's the education level of the person you're dealing with? Right? So there's some people that are going to be kind of easy to type, maybe because the lack of education. You can easily see how they're just using a couple of elements and that's it. Then you have some people who are highly educated, and it's hard to identify certain types, certain elements, because they seem to be quite knowledgeable and aware of all of them to a high degree. Now you have to have that tricky skill as a typologist to sort of figure out, like, okay, hold up, what is actually you that you care about, and what's all this other stuff that you've learned through your education and years of doing stuff. Like, that becomes another little challenge. So education of the individual matters a lot. And experience. Where have they been throughout their life? What's all the stuff they've been doing? Are they highly experienced? Experience is a form of education too, right? You've learned a lot of shit through your travels. Let's do it up. Everybody depends on what someone considers on here. A lot of stuff people brag about for their SE dominance is nothing in hood. Yep. Again, back to culture. You're in a certain culture. There's a lot of tough talk and I kick this guy's ass and I'll fuck him up and it's part of the culture. So everybody talks like that. Everybody goes into stuff like that. That doesn't mean they value it though. And now we're back to the skill of the typologist to ask the right kinds of questions to separate the two, to figure out the difference. Right? For military people, I'm military. You'll see a lot of this SE shit also. Makes sense. You're in the military. Everybody in there is to fuck shit up and kill people. Like, yeah, duh. Didn't only 12 of the 16 types. Your obsession is amazing. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. I really want to kind of try to understand why this issue is so insanely important to you. It's to the point of like, it's just odd. It's very odd why you're so obsessed with this thing. Which to me, anybody who's been in Socionics for about 12.7 seconds already knows that the stackings and cognitive and all that between MBTI to Socionics is not the same. There's no point looking at it. Who gives a shit? Just chuck all that. Like, be blacking the anatomy. Oh boy. Yeah. Said most black people were what? I don't even know how that shit was popular because it sounds absurdly stupid right from the start, right? Most black people are SEE. Talk about painting with a broad brush, huh? Show me the evidence of that. Did you survey most black people? So that means all across the world, the entire planet. Uh-huh. Yeah, good luck trying to prove anybody. It's absurd on the surface of it. DCNH is fun, but circle jerk by geek LIIs. Yes, yes, yes. I have to agree with that. And I really wonder, I would love to do like statistical surveys of certain things. Call me a fucking TE geek on that, but I would love to get some statistics. I really wonder what the fuck do LIIs really love DCNH and Model G? Is Model G just speaks to LIIs? I would love to see some data on that. Or get a panel of LIIs and just see if they all agree. I don't know. There's, I love stealing certain terms from people because sometimes people just say it well. They got it right. I like this spaghetti. There's a lot of spaghetti and evaluation action. Like it's spaghetti. Like some of these things. Like, yeah, it kind of is just fucking shit everywhere. Okay, decent just means cognitive focus, whatever the fuck that is, because really socionics cognitive fuck even Enneagram can talk about that. So how does that different with DCNH? Now, I would love to see Galenko or one of his disciples, whatever, explain cognitive styles. I mean, really try to explain that shit. I would fucking love to see that, but they never do. Galenko doesn't address any of his issues. People criticize things. He just disappears. It pisses me the fuck off. Let's put it that way. It just drives me crazy. He doesn't address specific criticisms. He just continues coming up with more theory and stuff. What the fuck is cognitive styles? What the fuck is the crypto panoramic holographic? It's a lot. Whatever the fuck any of that means. And God does he love to use dramatically big words for no fucking reason. Instead of trying to make things understandable, he makes things harder. Yeah, that's fucking hilarious. SLEH is just an SLI. Wow, it's such a stretch, dude. uh, where I would agree with you, Russ, is that in the SE leads, I know tended to become increasingly more unhinged as they gain power. Hmm. You know, I think this is something we do see with the variations of type. Again, I know DCNH tries to address this. Other people use Enneagram to complement like Socionics to try to understand these variations. Um, I'm not sure either are really appropriate. But one thing we do see sometimes is certain individuals are so easy to type because they lean so heavily into like their dominant or their base function. Um, it's like they drank their own Kool-Aid and the SE is just out of control, or for some TE type, their TE is out of control. Um, NIs sometimes it just every type. There's some people that just seem to like be stuck in their dominant functions. I'm on board with Anakin Skywalker being likely an SEE. I like that, especially if you watch Clone Wars, where they really demonstrate a lot of Anakin during the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan, all that stuff. You even see characters in that show, droid generals, psychoanalyzing Anakin Skywalker and psychoanalyzing um, Obi-Wan and all this other stuff. You see their troops, the clones, psychoanalyze Anakin Skywalker and so on. And what are the things they talk about? Impulsiveness, very aggressive, acts before thinking, but is really good at just adapting to whatever happens and getting through it. Very balls to the wall, charging through the front door kind of approach. Sounds a lot like an SE type, doesn't it? Very emotional type too. We can all agree Anakin Skywalker is super emo. For some people, it's part of the reason why you don't like him early in some of the movies, because he's emo as fuck. So I'm okay if you want to call him SEE. And he was definitely FI valuing with Padme and certain things like that, and his mother, etc. So SEE for Anakin Skywalker, I'm good with that. I'm good with that typing, not LSI. Now, when he becomes Vader, he's like a whole different person. Everything changes. And we actually have probably less information about what's going on in Darth Vader's head, because we just don't see him very often unless he's killing somebody. You know? Oh my goodness. See, now I'm curious about this. Now I'm going to geek out over Anakin Skywalker here. LSI because he's a good mechanic as a kid. Somebody was probably using that as a justification. Yeah, not buying it. Anakin was a good mechanic because he was just fucking great at everything, because he was supercharged with metachlorians and whatever the fuck. Like, no. Tended to be a lot more insane and had a lot of weight in their gangs. So I'm guessing you mean to say that they're in charge, or they have a lot of influence. The casual SE lead, but they aren't fighting back if an actual capo says shut up. What's with the casual SE lead? What distinction are you trying to make there? Now, I can understand some types that once they become in charge, you kind of have to stay in charge. You have to keep order and keep your position of power. And so you got to lean into your SE more. I feel like I've done that through personal experience just on military things. You're in charge. You're going to use that SE more. You're going to flex it more. The situation calls for it. And after a while, you can really get used to that. See some of my SE basins on. Wait, what is going on here? Most of the SE. Okay, all right, stop. SE leads pretend that they are on that level. Again, a lot of peacocking and bullshitting and everything else that goes on. Keyboard warriors. It's like, whatever. It's like, how many fucking Navy SEALs and Delta Force commandos that actually go around like choking fuckers out for real do you see fucking lurking on PDB? Like, mm-hmm. Well, okay, so all right, there's a bunch of talk over here, but summarizing that, correctly typed SEs are MBTI ESTPs 100% of the time, but correctly, yeah, Yeah, if you go in MBTI or Kiersey, you will see them described, ESTPs described as very like fun, hedonistic, like goofy, uh, and it sounds like they have either an SEE in mind or they have elements of both mixed together, which I'm more inclined to say that they have elements of mixed in there. Um, it's not clear cut. There's certain things about Kiersey that I like. His book, his writing style, the things he focused on was very TE to me. It was very practical. It was about what's the cash value was something Kiersey would talk about. What is the cash value of all of this? What does the average person care about when going through typology? Okay, he understood that circle jerking theory all day long was not practical and not useful and was irrelevant to most people. He was very pragmatic in that way, and I really enjoyed that with Kiersey. Some of his descriptions don't hold up well when you're trying to compare them to Socionics. That's where things start falling apart. As far as okay, yay, that was nope. Okay, well, internet glitch. Oops. Hopefully everybody can hear me, or I'm just gonna be here talking to myself, but whatever. So now what more bullshit's going on? I was saying SEE to me is kind of another pet project of mine. I think it's one of those types that just doesn't get fucking talked about enough. Actually, now I'm wondering, can anybody hear me? Don't worry, I'll wait. More openly insulting of both fans upon it. What is going on here? Holy crap. Holy shit. There's a bunch of Conor McGregor stuff. Shit, is that fun part where the... Okay, cool. We're back. This is that fun part where the comment section just goes crazy. You can't even keep up anymore. Fantastic. Anyway, yeah, SEEs are one of those pet project types of mine that I've been wanting to really go at for a while. In fact, I would say gammas and deltas don't get nearly enough love in socionics in particular. And I think that might have to do in part with the fact that it's a TEFI thing. I think a lot of gammas and deltas are looking for more TE stuff. And have a better use probably of FI. So some of them might be thinking to themselves, why do I give a shit about typology? I'm not that bad with people. Others are like, you can't put people in a box and this kind of shit, whatever. Meanwhile, a lot of your creators in socionics are very, let's face it, a lot of them tend to be ILEs or LIIs or, whatever, even some SLEs, and they don't get gammas and deltas well. So they don't produce a lot of good material towards those types. So anyway, I got to deal with a lot of those people. Forgot my flow here. What's going on? I see got flow state up in here. Somehow convinced that SE lead is always going to be in charge of their groups or whatever. But they're supposed to be aware of who's above them. Again, not all SE leads are going to give a shit. Right? It's not always I have to be the alpha male top dog in charge of everything. It doesn't always have to be that way. This is where it makes sense to add a little like psychosophy type of stuff in here where they talk about will and volition. Don't give a shit enough to be the top dog, and some types do. Some people have a chip on their shoulder, and that's the reason why they got to be in charge. There's different reasons there. But if you go around typing people or looking at interviews of people being typed, people who are an SE lead, you notice that this idea of SE leads always having to be in charge, it doesn't work. It falls apart. Not all of them give a shit. There's a lot of depends, especially if you're talking an SEE. It depends. SEEs are far more independent minded, like all gammas. You are the only one. Put that up there. You are the only one that really brings up gender. Maybe differences across the gender and types of quadras would be a good playlist. Yeah, I guess it would. It's a tall order because you're kind of going one by one with every person and how that plays a difference with gender. But it would be. To me, it's self-evident that gender is going to play a role. It's important. It's just, how would it not be important? To me, it's just like, it's crazy to suggest that it doesn't matter in how the personality or the type is going to present, how it's going to manifest certain things. It's going to. And I think I saw somebody mention something about Taylor. Yeah, I don't know. At some point, we're going to have to beat down Jack's door to. I don't know if that was Taylor Swift comment now that I'm thinking about it. But to have that debate about Taylor Swift and what her type is. Because I don't agree with Jack. I not buying it. Especially after a lot of her latest crap. Dating, what's his fucking name? This guy from the 1975 band. She dated him for like about 2 weeks and then tossed him to the curb. And it was obvious that that was going to happen. Like, that is not an EII move. EIs don't do this kind of shit. It's like, it's bullshit. I don't know what is ESI on Young. On Young. Not sure what you mean on Young. But you also didn't just fight every random bum or overreact to power that much. Tyson, yeah, I would probably be comfortable calling Muhammad Ali an an SLE. No problem with that as a typing. I don't think I would. I don't think I'd go with SLE for Mike Tyson. So there's a difference right there. And although maybe, but I don't think so. And important in this case, their background, their history, their culture that they came from, what was their personal life. That's going to matter. Muhammad Ali came from a pretty nice family in Kentucky, kind of lower middle class, but fairly nice family and all that. He was likable. He didn't have these kind of social problems. Mike Tyson had a lot of problems. His mom was a drug addict who was not around. He had no father. He was put in juvenile facilities and shit when he was young. Had a lot of image problems. He had that voice, which, come on, let's face it, you're going to get picked on a lot if you talk like that. He had a lot of emotional issues to deal with. So that culture, that background is going to be important if you're trying to type. You have to address that. Yeah, I think this is partly true. They kind of want to do what they want to do, and being in charge matters a lot. This especially, though, plays out well for a lot of gammas. A lot of gammas, SEEs, even LIEs to an extent, being in positions of power or authority grants them independence and freedom to do things the way they want to do it. So a lot of gammas are going to kind of agree with this. I think the real difference being, when we're talking about authority, a lot of gammas just enjoy having the freedom, really. They're not as imposing of their authority or their rules and their structures on things and people. Betas can be much more imposing of their rules and their structure. Think of someone like a Napoleon who's trying to impose his will and his military organization upon everyone else around him. Very much the I'm in charge sort. In fact, now that I said all that bullshit, I have to feel like let's go back to the quadras. SE plus FE as a theme. That's very SLE there. SLEs in many cases enjoy the public spotlight more. Kind of like Muhammad Ali. They enjoy being center of attention. They enjoy letting everyone know I'm in charge, that I'm awesome, and get a load of me. Conor McGregor, guys like this. Napoleon did a lot of that too. Your gammas can be a little more behind the scenes, less concerned with how people are perceiving them. This is where FE is not as valued. These are other little distinctions we have to pay attention to help sort out like this SE type or that type or whatever. It's being able to instill your will according to your desires. And a lot of times the best way to do that is to create some kind of a structure around you that keeps you in charge, keeps you on top. Or you can create a social environment that puts you on top. Gammas, again, are less concerned with those things, which could be a problem for gammas. In fact, how about this one? If you're talking beta versus gamma, one of the areas that betas are more likely to win is on the FE field. They're more likely to be better at branding, mobilizing crowds of people, mobilizing the mob, whatever, getting people on board with their ideas or what they're trying to do. This can create strength in numbers. And now your will and what you want is accomplished because you've mobilized masses of people to be on board with you and overwhelm the opposition. Many gammas might fuck up in this area because many gammas just don't pay enough attention to FE. So they never really mobilize crowds of people. They don't get groups together, and they can lose because of that. Think of a tiger that's very strong but is by itself versus a pack of wolves that maybe one-on-one are not as strong as the tiger, but as a pack overwhelm that tiger. How would you compare it to any lead? Not sure what you're referring to. Booby, everything great. Often end up in positions. Yeah, I would say it happens often. Yeah, that maybe an SE lead or somebody high on SE is not deliberately trying to be in charge. That might not be what they're thinking, but they end up in a position of charge, whatever, because they're just taking action. They're just doing stuff and they throw themselves in front and everything else. The problem becomes, are they competent at what they're doing? And for some SE dominant types, it's almost like, fuck it, who cares? Just get after it and let's go. And I'll figure it out as I go along. I like to bring alpha dog. Blah, blah, blah. Isn't she SEE? I'm not sure who you're talking about. Which she? Jordan doesn't have a type, just pure ego. It's definitely SE though. He's got high SE in my opinion. Yeah, the Taylor Swift EII argument. Yeah, again, that's debate still waiting. I guess we have to discuss that one. It's not really a debate. I'm not a fan of debates. The whole formal process of debate is bullshit to me, but it's like a discussion. We'll just talk about it, bro. I don't buy EII for Taylor Swift. Not buying it. I have my own videos up there making my arguments for that. And you look at her series, her own words and documentaries. Homegirl is very FE in my opinion, and a lot of SE going on. Lennon is not ILE. I don't think so either. Just off the cuff. Elvis SEE. I don't know. I don't have anything against Elvis being SEE, but I'm not a big Elvis aficionado, so I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But on the surface of it, I don't mind that. I ever see our beta types maybe accept SEEs. Ever see where? He type a lot of EIs because they realize they're a lot more heady than he previously thought. Well, I think also a big problem here is that betas are one to be in the spotlight a lot. Um, they're kind of easier to notice too, in part because they want to be noticed. They value FE, they have SE, they throw themselves out there. A lot of them do, especially the extroverted beta types. So it's easy to see a lot of these people and then use them as examples of a certain type. If we were to try to think about EIEs or SLEs, like everybody can come up with like dozens of examples, but it gets trickier when you're trying to think of like delta types. They're just not in the spotlight as much. Another reason why I like to try to focus on gammas and deltas a little bit on some of my videos, because they just don't get enough love. It's like half the Socion that's just forgotten about. Yeah, I would. The manic pixie dream girl thing is just too. It's too much of a stereotype. You're like, what do you mean by that? There's a lot of types that could be acting like a manic pixie dream girl for some reason. So I was like, pfft, what does that mean? Anyway, taking arguments because they think a lot about their current actions and so on. Oh, if we're talking EIE, which is what I assume you're talking about there, yes. However, EIEs can be confrontational, spurgy little bastards too. Speaking of that, Rust, I'd like you to one day make a video on Rusted's dictionary. Let's put it that way. Make a whole video for that, just for me. Just for me. It'd be like, this is Rusted's dictionary provided to you for Jason. These are Rusted's famous words and phrases so that everybody understands what all this shit means and what I'm saying by this. I'd love to see that. I might be the only person who finds it funny, but fuck it. I don't care. Most people get that the archetype is SO2. Again, I don't know what the Enneagram thing is, so I'm not sure. But some of them can be some feisty little bastards. Is a bold fighter that will jump in according to Jack. Depends. Not always. Not always. I would disagree. Not all SEEs are so impulsive and stupid. I don't agree with that necessarily. I do like the idea that SEEs, being very gamma, typically are more serious, more focused on what they want to do in their work and what's productive. So they'll often go after things that they feel are productive for them. But if it has no practical application, if they feel like they can't win or it just doesn't matter, then they might not get involved. They might just keep on going, like whatever. IQ, another important piece. So let's talk about all this shit. So I've been thinking about making videos on this, but I've been lazy. IQ, education, gender, culture. Fuck else am I missing? But who knows? It'll pop up at some point. These are all things that can make a difference in how the type manifests, right? You can have a type, whatever, SEE, and they're stupid. Oh, the other thing, neurological disorder, neurodivergent, trauma, whatever, all that other bullshit will affect how somebody manifests. It's another thing. So you can have an SEE. I'm not to pick on SEEs, but just as an example, maybe they're fucking stupid. They're not the sharpest bulb, you know? And so they behave a certain way and do dumb shit. Maybe they have emotional issues, do dumb shit, whatever. And then you have some other SEEs that might be pretty smart. They're smart cookies. Maybe they're well educated, you know, mommy issues or whatever other fucking problems. And they're going to present a little bit differently. A type that gets talked about is Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban thought of as an SEE. There are a lot of people who look at him and go, he's not an SEE. He has to be an NTJ because look at what a great businessman he's been and all this other stuff. And they can't wrap their mind around the fact that that could be an SEE. Yeah, when you listen to the guy, he's talks about how he was always an acting kind of person, quick to jump on things. What's practical? Make money. What am I going to do now? Quick. Always doing it. He's rather confrontational at times too. You've seen it even on Shark Tank where he'll just start yelling at some of the other people. There's a lot of high SE in there that has always been present in his personality. But it shocks people that an SEE, again, could be a successful billionaire. Really do not understand EIs that are okay. Intertype relations to. You need to know your own intertype relations to type people. That's a slippery slope. I'd be careful with that one, because it's just not that easy. This, by the way, sounds like something a very feely type of person would say. Just a guess. Trusting a little too much in your ability to size up people instinctively here. Got to be careful. You can have your own type wrong. You could just fuck up in typing other people. So, slippery slope. The archetype of the SE is often described as someone who is great at speaking to the masses and mobilizing groups. So how does it work for SEEs? First, I would say that they're not as good. Not as good at what? I don't know. Anyway, being able to speak to the masses, mobilize people, being a good orator, that's a skill in and of itself. So it has to be practiced. It has to be worked on in some way. Now, obviously, if you value FE, if you value talking to the masses and so on, or you think it can help you in some way, you're going to work on it. You're going to at least do it a whole shitload of times, and just over experience, you'll probably get better at it. Great at speaking to the masses and so on. I think what you'll find with a lot of SEEs is that they can be very charismatic people. They're interesting. So there's a lot of celebrities. I think of Bretman Rock. I always fuck his name up. You have some people like this that they have more of an attitude of, I'm doing myself. I'm going to do what I want to do and what I think is productive. And I'm going to let my freak flag fly and just whatever. You like me or you don't. And that's kind of the attitude. But there's a certain natural charisma that makes them likable and people will listen. But it's not that they're actively trying to win you over or trying to mobilize you to do anything. They're not. In most cases, they're not. They're just, I'm just going to do me. And in the act of just doing what I want to do or just being my authentic self, people end up liking me. There's a lot of that. Take Eminem, who I don't think is SEE. I think he's probably ESI. But here's a guy who clearly acts like he doesn't give a fuck what you think of him. He's just like, whatever, y'all can, But he's very charismatic in his own way. There's a lot of people who love him for that kind of attitude of he's going to do his own thing. I'm going to be my authentic, real, raw self and love me or hate me, whatever. And there's a lot of people who love that. So they listen to him. They follow him. They pay attention to him. But he's not actively trying to get you to give a shit. He's just going to do what he wants to do. It's much more independent minded. Much more I'm doing myself. Yeah, Taylor Swift. Yeah. Got to get on that. That thing's gathering dust. Good at building up the rapport, and not that they struggle with actually making structured or lasting. It's more as these have a ragtag group of misfits. Yeah. Pretty much. Again, Anyway, yes, again, it's SEEs can be just doing their own thing. It's like I'm going after whatever carrot or whatever is useful that I find practical, or that I find I just have an interest in and I want to do. I'm gonna do me. If you happen to like what I'm doing or you want to get on board, cool, just do that. But they're not necessarily trying to win over the crowds or whatever. They're not really gonna go out of their way for that. It's more of I'm gonna do what I believe in and so on. And that's it. So that's an important thing. And with the SEEs, yeah, they're a little more. I'm doing what I got to do now and what's useful and what I want to do. And they're not paying a whole lot of attention to whether this is going to be a lasting thing or how well organized and structured it all is. Is it aligning with some kind of greater, deeper theoretical meaning? They're not necessarily paying attention to that. That's later. That's in the back of their mind. That's like whatever. It's not important right now. Right. Taylor Swift is ESE. I don't care. You can make an argument for that. I thought about that. You can make an argument for that. I'm not convinced of that though. I'm almost more on the idea of EIE rather than ESE. But I mean, they're both FE DOMs. So, but I think it's a reasonable thing. What I'm against really is EII. It's like, yeah, no. I might even be okay if you wanted to say IEE and still be in Delta. You can try that one, and I'll hear that one out. I could make some arguments for that too, but I'm not. I'm not buying that one though. But ESC to me is not terrible call. ESC is also power trio. What? Say what now? Power trios EIE, SEE, and SLE when it comes to garnering attention, with ESE coming in from the left. What? Like, say what now? Blah, blah, blah. Power trio is EIE, SEE, and SLE when it comes to garnering attention, with ESE coming in from. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Their amount of influence, and they have a lot of SE energy and drive. Power trio. Yeah. So a couple other types that can be pretty good at some of this in a different way. You can have some pretty influential people in their spheres, like ILEs and so on. You can have the Neil deGrasse Tysons and these other science guys that are pretty influential people at this point. Oh, I love it. I actually wanted to create rusted vocab. Yes. Yeah. No. Right. You got so many like phrases in there. It's like, this is hilarious. Like, we need a little dictionary. I'm gonna throw some ideas at you. You can make an episode, Rusted's Dictionary, and just put a bunch of stuff in there. Or you can, as you just talk, you can just edit that shit in there on the corner and just be like, okay, I just used a couple of words. Here's the definition of that word here on the side of the screen, while I keep going. Maybe you can have Lilith doing that. She could just be there next to you, like, let me translate this guy for you. Boy, I gotta catch up. Catch it up, bro. Read all this shit. Ben Vaslin's channel concerning Enneagram and Socionics. It seems really hard to correlate a motivation type to the blockings of a society. I need you to kind of elaborate on what you're trying to say there. Type is Lizzo. I have no idea because I don't know shit about Lizzo. Being romantic doesn't eliminate being cerebral. Of course not. In fact, you say being cerebral, acting like a nerd who thinks about a lot of logical, nerdy shit, theoretical physics, or just somebody who's intelligent, right? What do we mean by that? we should all collectively drop. I think we should all collectively drop Enneagram. As well, I might want to agree with you on that. Yeah, shit ain't gonna happen. It's probably the most popular fucking system out there. Might even be more popular than MBTI, especially worldwide. See, and then some people just like Enneagram more than Socionics, you know? Fuck it, whatever. Some people do. I find it complicated. I find it messy as fuck. People start going on, well, you're a 7, 2, 3, 4 tri-type with this and that, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening? And I've always had a harder time finding myself in Enneagram. So, but that's just my opinion. You know, maybe I'm full of shit and I'm stupid. Who knows? What's going on here? Betraying or characterized by the use of the intellect rather than intuition, or betraying or characterized by the use of the intellect. Yeah, kind of a nerdy, certain, you know, classic person who's trying to logically analyze the fuck out of everything. Go. Doesn't just jump into fights or whatever. So a person doesn't, they think and strategize. Yeah, I'd say that's a safe generalization. And it's a trait of NI. In generally speaking, yes, that NI types usually don't. Are more provocative than actually likely to fight you. Yeah, I see what you're saying with that too. They might be provoking or instigating some shit. But actually the type that never actually throws down. Yeah, that can happen quite a bit. You could say that Hitler, for example, who's often thought of as an evil EIE, while he was constantly mobilizing the masses and giving a lot of speeches and all this passionate shit and getting everybody on board to do a lot of dirty work, he himself was not necessarily the guy running around punching people in the face and clubbing people and throwing people around. He had other people to do that for him. Probably a fuck ton of other, well, I was going to say other betas, SE, but that's over generalizing there a bit. But he had other people to do the muscle and the work. He was just the voice and the inspiration for it. However, having said all that shit, you might run into some EIEs that, again, emotionally, they're not as stable. They're not as calm. They're not as relaxed. And they could be forced into wanting to get into fights or things like that with other people, or causing issues, not necessarily a fist fight, but an argumentative, confrontational kind of fight over some kind of bullshit. They may feel that socially I have to engage with somebody because otherwise my social status may take a hit or something like that. So I have to do something. It's like schoolyard bullying rules or prison rules, right? If I look like a bitch, I'm going to have everybody all over me and so on. So I feel the social need to look tough. So I'm going to engage with somebody. And yeah, you might think like that. So there's other reasons that go into play. Someone who just has an immediate attacks the standard of their behavior. Someone who just feeling immediately attacks and so on. Yeah, again, we need to talk more about the individual. What happened? What's the situation? What are they thinking about? To figure it out. Could be mental illness, could be something else going on, could be upbringing, could be the social environment, whatever. A whole bunch of other shit plays a role in that. There's also sometimes you're being confrontational with the wrong fucking person. And I can see that being an issue with EIEs and other types, that they're trying to be argumentative or just influence something, push something, and they're just fucking with the wrong person and they don't realize it. And it's the other person now that gets in that EIE's face. Brutal question. What helped you be sure you're an LIE? Process of elimination, to be honest. Process of elimination. I think most people who go into typology stuff, especially something like Socionics or Enneagram, also complicated, you're going to go through a lot of cycles of, am I really this type? Am I that? I don't know. Maybe. And there could be some flip-flopping going on. Back to the Quadra values. What do you value? What are the elements that you value? Which Quadra description do you align with mostly? Okay, now we know which Quadra you're in. And then within that Quadra, what things are you doing, believing in, whatever, that stand out the most? Taking outside opinion is always helpful because we can bullshit ourselves into thinking. So taking outside opinions is important, but it's not the end all be all, right? It depends on whose opinion. Is it somebody who knows you very well for a long period of time, seen you in multiple environments? Is it somebody who has only seen you in very specific environments? All of these things kind of matter. To me, honestly, I don't mind entertaining people giving me comments and shit about like, oh, you're LIE or maybe you're SEE. Like, okay, that's still part of the same Quadra. That's still part of valuing the same things. You still are an extroverted gamma. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of similarity and overlap in there. And then we can quibble over like which is really more important and which is not. It's when people start doing a few other stupid shit, like they, LSI or your ESI. It's just other stuff. It's like, yeah, no. See, even this stuff is fucking hilarious too, because you'll have people who will swear like he's got no feeling. Other people like he's got a lot of feeling. And you'll see people going back and forth contradicting each other. What can I say? They conflict with and then aren't able to correctly type them. Your own intertype relations. Knowing the intertype relations, yes, is important. If you're very comfortable with what you are, you can try to use intertype relations. To me, it's always more important to try to figure out your type and the type of the person you're dealing with, and intertype relations comes after that, not before. I think that's kind of the important thing I'm trying to hit on there. How much weight do people put on intertype relations here? I don't know. If you're asking me, I like it, but it's not the end all be all. There's some guardrails you have to kind of put in place. So things like your dual is going to be the best thing ever since sliced bread. Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. And it doesn't always work out quite as well for everybody. Then there's remembering intertype relations in terms of it's useful when you're trying to build a team, an organization, a business, and you want a team together whose values are in alignment and we all complement our strengths and weaknesses. Okay, that's team building. Romantic relationship is a little bit of another thing, though. There's other things that come into play here. So there's utility in intertype relations, but there's also some weaknesses, and there's a lot to kind of like details to get into on that. Flow state thinks M&M is LSI. LSI and ESI at least present in a lot of similar ways. There's a lot of shit they have in the middle. They're both anypolar. There's a lot of stuff that overlap there. So, if one person wants to say, I'm seeing more of the LSI, I'm seeing more ESI, it's not a stretch. It's not like an insane typing choice. I think then we would start quibbling over TI or FI, and more importantly, just the quadra values. Which quadra value are you seeing more? Yep, and that's part of the reason why quadra values matters a lot. You'll see a lot of deltas talking about, not deltas, what do you call it? Gammas, excuse me. Gammas often do not like FE. I've seen that in my conversations with people who are gammas, and a lot of them be like, when people start going to FE mode and talking FE stuff and shit, like I don't want to hear that shit. I can agree with that when it comes to like politicians or celebrities or commercials that are trying to pull at your heartstrings and so forth in a very FE way. That kind of bugs the shit out of me. To me, it's like, where's the TE though? Where's the substance? What are you saying? Where's the facts of the case? Show me that you understand what the fuck you're doing. You show me that you understand the topics and so on, and that I can trust that you know what the hell you're doing. I don't care how you feel about it so much. It's not that important. You have strong, passionate feelings, but you're incompetent, don't know what you're doing. Okay, that's cute. You feel the way you do, but get out of the way and let someone else run it because you don't know what you're doing. It's priorities. You're inclined to be more decisive with relationships and cutting stuff. I agree with the latter. The former is more. Okay, wait. Means collectivism, or as in SEFI means they're inclined to be more decisive with relationships and cutting stuff off. In a very general sense, yes, I think both things kind of work. Generally speaking, you start drilling in a little bit deeper. Your FI valuing people really care about the meaningful, deeper connection to somebody. Bottom line, who is the character of this person? What are they about? Are they into the same things I'm into? Do we work well? Do we connect? That matters more. Are they available for me when I want them or need them? What's the level of connectivity between me and that individual? It's very important stuff. And if there is no connectivity, if we're not really aligning or it's not working, then it's like, okay, whatever. You go that way or you keep your distance. There's a whole lot of TI users agree with all kinds of shit. What does FI polar look? What does FI polar look like? Well, this is one of those topics that gets hit on a lot because we have a lot of people who are FI polar out in the community talking a lot. So you will see a lot of, you'll see a range. I think it's always important. Always understand there's a range at how someone's polar function might present. Some people are really, really, really bad. So ILEs and SLEs are FI polar, and a lot of them will talk about having no ability to really judge someone's character, to know what that person's about, to understand whether they're a friend, whether they mean you well, what's their intent. Are they close to me? Are they not close to me? They don't seem to understand those things. Or it's so far off in the back of their mind that it's just like they're never thinking about it. some individuals will talk about FI polar in the extreme. Damon Gray from True Generations, I think, is one of the most extreme cases I've heard, where he talks about FI stuff and he's just like, what the fuck is that? What is that? What does that mean? What does that mean to be close to somebody? Like, feelings about someone? What are you talking about? Like, he comes across, wow. But other people are not always that bad. They'll just say that, look, I just don't really make character judgments of people, and I don't stick to them. Maybe I didn't like that person yesterday, and today now I'm cool with them. I like them. I flip-flopped on my opinion of the person. I would actually be curious to know why you hate Neil deGrasse Tyson that much. Just my curiosity, like, why do you hate that guy so much? I'm sure it's going to be a very specific thing, but he's condescending. I don't know. I don't really find him condescending, but whatever. Different opinions, I guess. I get it probably has to do with his political views, but he's pretty sound and objective when it comes to climate change and trans rights. I don't know. I just don't find him hateable. Whatever. Even if you disagree with certain things. Sometimes I wish he'd be a little more open-minded to some ideas, but it's okay. I don't hate him. I don't know. He's very alpha to me. He's just a very lovable, like, woo, check out all this space shit, and like, oh my god. And I don't know. It's almost like he's hard to dislike, in my opinion. Yeah. Ego, super ego, id, super id. Like, haven't I done that already? I don't know. Probably. I might not have, actually. I don't think I actually. Maybe not. I don't know. Something that I do find annoying is that there are a lot of people who have channels and they have a shitload of videos, and I find a lot of people don't do their due diligence and go through their library of videos and stuff. But I don't think I've specifically done a video about ego and then another specific video about super ego and that. So yeah, I guess that's something to talk about. Shit, famous examples of SLIs or deltas in general. Again, I'd have to think about it. This is part of the problem with deltas. They're just so out of sight, out of mind. It's one of the things that actually irritates the fuck out of me with deltas, to be honest. They can just be so chill about going about their own business and just doing their own thing, not trying to be in the spotlight or impress anybody or any. It's part of the reason why they're harder to find famous people. I know of certain individuals that have been talked about as deltas, some that I probably agree with. Some writers, Dostoevsky, whatever. What's her name? Who wrote Harry Potter? Probably an EII like that. Mentions of George Bush, the father, as probably being like an LSE type. Got to think of a few others that we would run into. I actually know in person a lot of deltas, so I almost feel like it's easier for me to just talk about deltas from like the people I know personally than point out celebrities. For some reason, I seem to have a lot of deltas around me. Pretty nice number of them. I don't know. Not sure what that says exactly. I must have some attraction, some polarity to them somehow. I don't know what the fuck. Speaking of this again, actually, I was going to do a video. I needed to type Suki from True Blood. Just happened to have that on last night, and I was watching that. I'm like, this chick looks like a fucking EII to me. I'm sorry, not EI, IEE to me, and I'm kind of sticking with that for now. And I was gonna do a whole little video talking about that, so I'll get to that. I just gotta find some video footage to show. Yeah, OPS has like a billion fucking types and so on. It just gets crazier and crazier. And I'm not thrilled with their animals. I'm not thrilled with some of the shit they, And at this point, I like Socionics definitions of certain elements and things better. So, yeah. SE plus FE appears to me to be more community-seeking building for means of influencing. Yeah, I think that's all put together. Community-seeking building, influencing, being part of the group, influencing the group, having some push on the group or society. Yeah. All of that kind of gets mixed in together, gets swirled around like paint for betas. I see something that people are not. Sometimes that people are not my kinds of people and don't interact with them, have conversations with them because no point in wasting time. This feels FI to me. Feels like something an FI type would do. Or somebody that values FI, I should say. Not an FI type, they just value FI. But not necessarily. Again, you have to ask some more questions as to why and whatever. Deltas can play this kind of game a lot. Manic encourage people to educate themselves. Are a big focus on my life. However, I'm pretty anti-dogma. Encourage people to educate themselves. And individualistic. Which makes me start wondering about IEE. That's got a flare of IEE going on there. But it could be a few other types too. Depends. Time trying to build a relationship conflict. However, I will be nice and respect them. I gotta keep catching up. Why don't you test relate to see if they work for you? Gotta catch up. Oh, here we go. Funny. Suki's my favorite character on that show. And Winterbird, I believe you consider yourself an IEE, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty darn confident on that. So isn't that funny that you find her? Yeah, she strikes me as very IEE to me. Right from the get-go, in the first couple of episodes, like she's excited about a vampire, the first vampire coming into the bar, and she's giddy at something new and novel. She's very open-minded about different people. She cares nothing for SE stuff. She's no concern for power imbalances, for the dangers of what's going on here. No, doesn't care. Is very stubborn and disregards other people's good information and good logic. Like, hey, they're vampires. They're meant to eat us. You realize that, right? I mean, birds got to fly, fish got to swim. And you really want to go over there? And she's like, no, don't worry about it. Dude, he looks nice to me. And he treats people like, let's take him for what he is, And it's very, very NEFI combination, or FINE. It's that kind of blocking going on. Very open-minded about the person. Let's get to know the person. Maybe we misunderstood the person. Let's know them as an individual and not as a group or some logical deduction. Let's talk about. So a lot of FINE going on there. She is a bit more extroverted. She has some SE usage. She can be kind of assertive and get in people's way. And you notice that she gets upset when people they're not open-minded. When people are not very open-minded, in her opinion, they seem too close-minded and rigid. She gets pissed And that's when you see kind of she becomes more assertive and aggressive with people. In my view, because of the lack of any, they're not demonstrating enough any, and so she's being very stubborn about an E. Be more open-minded with people. Yeah, and there you go. Suki tries to find the humanity within the vampires. Makes for interesting. This is part of the reason why, again, these deltas, the delta NFs, can be arguably the best counselors in typology, naturally speaking. Okay, even without training, they're just much more open-minded to each person. What do you want to do? What's your lifestyle about? That kind of stuff. They're not as interested in forcing anything on you. It's very helpful from a counseling point of view, and very open to you deciding for yourself. I'm just here to help guide you to find your own values and what you want and so forth. Delta NFs are more naturally inclined to think like that. Beta NFs typically have their own singular point of view on what is best for everyone. That's kind of their natural take on things. So beta NFs are probably better for thinking about society or the group as a whole rather than you as an individual. What can we do for you very specifically? Delta NFs reverse that. And Suki's total disregard for the practical logic side of stuff, and how she cares nothing for SE things, like, hey, I'm dealing with super predators. That kind of drives, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? But a good example, in my opinion, of a delta NF at work there. Compatible subtype with your conflicting work pretty well. Wait, okay, compatible subtype with your conflicting type. It's just more tolerable, but nobody want to constantly get hit in their super ego functions all day. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that working out. If you're gonna play like the DCNH or some subtype system like that, yeah. Somebody's more or less on a particular element or whatever. That, yeah, makes all the sense in the world to me. What are compatible? I haven't heard about that before. Would be like ILETI and ESIFI. I'm not sure if that specific type works out. That doesn't look right. But it's just that a type can have more or less of an accentuation. Let's call it accentuation on a particular uh, element within their valued functions, valued stack. So if you're somebody who hates SE and you're dealing with somebody who has a lot of SE, but they don't seem to use it that much because of a subtype thing, they don't want to use a lot of SE, they're going to work with you a lot better than another SE valuing type, but it's too much on the SE. Hopefully that came out sensible. I think it did. What am I talking about? Well, it was on a bunch of different Quadra values. We did also have to hit on the importance of IQ, education, gender, culture. Not sure what else I missed. Trauma, neurodivergence, all that shit matters. And then we're just talking about a bunch of different types and random people and shit. So it's kind of where we're at here. But unfortunately, is JZLIETU? I have no idea because I don't know anything enough about JZ to know. So I have no idea. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. Now, as much as I do have the energy to keep on going, my dog is pissed at me because he wants to go out. So I'm going to have to end here. been with my conflicted type for a decade now, and having known he was my conflicted before we got involved, knowing a bit of socionics has helped, I think. Yeah. And that's one of the useful applications of socionics. It's just like, why would we? I'm big on that. What's the practicality? Like, what is the importance of typology? Why should anybody spending about all this shit when they could be doing something else? Well, there are benefits to this, and we should spend time talking about those uses and benefits and how to apply it, because it's not always obvious to everybody, and so on. But this is one of them. Understanding these intertype relations or issues and so on, and having the ability to predict them, and then what you're going to do about it. It's one of the benefits for socionics. It's one of the things that makes socionics unique and better, better than other systems. This isn't to knock other systems. It's just understanding where every system has its use, right? If you want to talk dating specifically, mating, dating, sex, interest, maybe something like Helen Fisher's personality system is more directly applicable to what you're trying to do. If you like approaching typology from a more emotional point of view, Enneagram, to me, is helpful in that area. Kiersey is very helpful in doing something in a pragmatic way, in a fast, expedient kind of way. MBTI, to an extent, is a little bit of that too. It's what it tries to do. Socionics, it's sociological in its nature. Sociology is at the core of socionics. So in part, it's a typing system to help you understand your cognitive thinking process and what you value and how you think about shit. Yes. But the other side of that coin is very much about sociological things. How do you relate to other people? Where do you fit in society? Where should we put you in society? And what groups of people are going to work well with you? What groups of people would be good for you to date or get involved with, and that sort of stuff. Is a social component is at the heart of socionics. Okay, let's see. Hold on a second. I gotta back up, man. Jay-Z is ILI. Again, I don't know enough about Jay-Z, so I don't know. Very informative. Thank you. I try to be. It's always nice to get some compliments, and you know how it is that it's that rule that whenever you get that, you need like 3 or 4 times the positive to cancel out the one negative comment. There's always that one asshole that wants to go off on you about something, and then you're just thinking about that asshole all day long. It told not necessarily agree with some of the things you said, but I'd be free to review or discard it. I would actually like to see that. I'm a big believer in the interviews. I like the interviews. I'm a big fan of World Socionic Society and Jack for that reason, especially because I think the interviews are critical to making this shit matter and relevant. You're putting real people in front of other people so that we can see what they value. We can see what they talk about, how they behave, and so on. And do an interview to really get into the root. What are you motivated by? What do you value? What do you care about? This is important stuff. It really helps to validate the whole system, as well as learning about pitfalls, right? Learning about when you're typing somebody or you're talking to somebody, there are areas where we fuck up. We make mistakes and we mistype someone for certain reasons, and we need to figure that out. And you figure that out by applying the thing, making mistakes, and then making corrections and things later on. Okay, yeah, and once you start doing typology, yeah, it really gets hard to get out of your head. You start using it everywhere. True. Happens to just about everybody. Have a good bringing up a lot of good stuff. Thank you. I've been telling people that the amount of mentally ill or divergent people is high in the groups. Which groups? But it's around, and you see it a lot in typology forums or conversations. That's why, to me, you got to do you got to bring it up. It might be unpleasant. It might be dangerous territory, undoubtedly, but it's important. It's obvious. You can see the comments sometimes people make. Sometimes you're like, bro, there's something. We just need to get that out of the way so then we can kind of move forward. Once you know typology, I find it kind of sneaks up everywhere. Yeah. Not shared ahead of time. Yes, if you're talking about the neurodivergence, which I'm sure you are. Yes. Yeah. You're trying to type somebody and you have no idea that they're schizophrenic or that they're maybe they have a certain level of autism. They might not even know they have it. That's part of the problem too, right? Then we get into some other topics which I argue about around here on a daily basis. I think it's an interesting topic is the overlap between a type and a medical diagnosis. There are certain medical diagnoses that you see popping up a lot with certain types, and we can get into this question: do they really have an actual diagnosis, a real thing going on, or is it just part of the type? That's just kind of the way they are, and we perceive this normal personality type as being somehow abnormal and requiring a diagnosis. Then your quality maximize happiness. A lot of stuff. Compatible. I find a lot of duels and stuff. Again, lots to go on in there. I found my life too boring and connect a lot with gammas. Yeah. deltas, man. I got a lot to say with deltas. I got a lot going on there. Especially my delta NFs, but the whole quadra really. Again, I know so much of them. What do we got, Jared? What's up? Harmonizing LII. I seek to harmonize MBTI and Socionics. 99% of the differences between. Yeah, I know, but it also seems to be an LII thing. I wonder. I see a lot of LIIs seem to do that kind of stuff, and again, it could be the so-called holographic panoramic thinking, whatever. And I'm actually curious to see is this an LII thing? If we start surveying LIIs, are we really going to see that they can't help but bring all these systems in and try to condense them into some kind of super system? I really wonder about that because it just seems to be a thing, seems to be a trend. I think the activator types and beneficiary can be more interesting. I have almost never seen an SEE choose an ILI out of a crowd or enjoy talking with them. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on in this. There's a lot that I find interesting here. I also wonder a little bit about duality when it comes to gammas. I've heard people talk about it. I know Rust on his channel, he's talked a little bit about this too. Yeah, I think gammas are a little bit interesting when it comes to this duality thing here, and what goes on within gammas. There's some interesting shit that happens there. Yeah, I don't know. But for an IEE, I can see that being a benefit. And supposedly, I mean, IEEs like benefit LIEs, and LIEs can look like IEEs temporarily on the benefit cycle thing. That's a thing. I'm a little on that, but there's something there. I usually like IEEs. There's a depends there, but most of the time. Okay. All right. Anyway. All right, guys. I gotta cut it off here. Tend to some other stuff, even though I can keep going for hours and hours. I should have been like a radio show DJ or some shit. So, thanks you guys for tuning in, talking. I'm glad there's a lot of interaction. As you can see, I'm very interactive and so on. So, keep it coming. Until the next time. Okay. See, I gotta stop. I gotta stop before I keep going. All right. Toodles.